It is profoundly worrying and distressing to witness the rapid decline of our country, Ghana, and her democratic institutions under the current NPP administration. We are forced to watch, even as our cherished nation regresses in areas where we once stood as a paragon of virtue. Globally, Ghana has been revered as a model of good governance, a staunch defender of democratic processes, and a beacon of rule of law, with an electoral commission renowned for conducting free and fair elections. Tragically, it seems those days are behind us. We are systematically dismantling all those achievements. Ghana today finds itself at an unprecedented low, and this is very disheartening. The individuals entrusted with the sacred duty to uphold our values are the very ones that are eroding them, abusing their power, and perpetuating injustices. This is a grave betrayal of the Ghanaian spirit and our democratic legacy. As the December 7, 2024 presidential and parliamentary elections rapidly approach, we are faced with escalating concerns that strike at the very heart of our democratic and electoral integrity. The Electoral Commission of Ghana, which should embody impartiality and integrity, is faltering grievously in its essential duties. The actions, and equally alarming the inactions of the Electoral Commission, marked by overt lawlessness and incompetence, mirror the troubling patterns of the current Akufo-Addo-Bawumia government. This administration, deeply entrenched in corruption, cronyism, and ineptitude, now audaciously suggests that it will cling to power against the will of the Ghanaian people, threatening a peaceful transfer of power, a stark betrayal of our democratic principles. In an unprecedented declaration, we have a sitting president who should champion our democratic ethos, yet he proclaims that he will not relinquish power to someone he once defeated. Indeed, power does corrupt. President Akufo-Addo, basking in the fleeting glory of power, he literally begged Ghanaians for a few years ago, seems to have forgotten that he too was defeated in the 2008 and 2012 elections. Yet power was graciously transferred to him in the year 2017. Out of the abundance of his heart, his mouth now speaks. This revelation speaks volumes about his intentions and the potential peril for our nation's stability. What the NPP unfortunately fails to understand is that the NDC stands prepared and vigilant, ready to ensure free and transparent elections, even at the risk of our own lives. We challenge President Akufo-Addo and the NPP to consider any underhanded maneuvers. Let this serve as an unequivocal warning. We are fully equipped and resolute and prepared to respond with unwavering determination to defend the sanctity of our votes and the democratic future of this nation we love. We in the NDC are not taking President Akufo-Addo's unguarded remarks lightly, and would like to caution that President Akufo-Addo is treading on treacherous ground, possibly encouraged by assurances that the Electoral Commission of Ghana will rig the 2024 elections in favor of his party. If the EC by any chance harbors any such plans, then they better revise their notes. They better heed the words of Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, spoken during her unveiling at University of Professional Studies, when she said, "A word to the wise is enough." As the General Secretary of this party, I want to assure all Ghanaians that NPP's machinations will not prevail. they will have no choice but to vacate the Flagstaff House and hand over smoothly to President John Mahama and Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman in January 2025 when they lose power. Not if, when they lose power. The choice is theirs to ensure a peaceful transfer of power from the NPP to the NDC or face the grave consequences of their actions. The 2024 elections represent a patriotic call to duty for every conscientious Ghanaian. Together, we must strive to uproot and dismantle the most inept, corrupt, and ethnocentric government ever in Ghana's history. This Akufo-Addo Bawumia maladministration. Ladies and gentlemen, today we stand before you to demand decisive action and accountability from the Electoral Commission of Ghana. Our press conference is compelled by serious concerns that have tarnished the ongoing limited voter registration exercise, which commenced on May 7, 2024. These issues, all avoidable, and primarily stemming from the EC's blatant incompetence and disregard for due process, include the following: the opaque and questionable recruitment of returning officers, deputy returning officers, and registration supervisors, which starkly lacks transparency and legal adherence. 2, faulty machines and poor network connectivity, causing undue delays and widespread frustration among voters. 3, inaccurate registration figures released by the EC, casting serious doubt on the integrity of data handling. 4, the busing of minors to registration centers and the misuse of the Ghana card to improperly register voters, tactics that severely undermine the credibility of our electoral process. 5, the egregious security breaches that threaten not only the sanctity of the registration process, but also the safety of our citizens. Now, these issues, if not addressed and rectified promptly, could severely compromise the authenticity of the electoral outcome in December, when the people of Ghana vote to choose their leader. Such flaws are not only unacceptable, but also pose a significant threat to the sanctity and credibility of our electoral process. Now, through this press conference, we remind the Electoral Commission and all relevant stakeholders that the eyes of Ghana, and indeed the world, are upon us. We must adhere to the highest standards of fairness, transparency, and justice to ensure that the forthcoming elections accurately reflect the true will of the Ghanaian people. Failure to address these issues is not an option. The EC must act swiftly to rectify these failings or face the united resolve of a nation that demands and deserves better. Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue today's proceedings, we do not do so only as members of the National Democratic Congress, but as dedicated patriots committed to safeguarding our democracy. It is time for the Electoral Commission to reaffirm its commitment to the Ghanaian people to adhere to due process and to perform its duties without bias or favor, thereby restoring efficiency and integrity to our electoral process. The Electoral Commission of Ghana must urgently adopt a new approach and fulfill its role as an impartial arbiter. It is imperative that the EC recognizes the critical nature of its mandate and the profound risk our country faces if it fails to perform its duties responsibly. We remain vigilant and are fully prepared to ensure that come January 2025, power will be peacefully transferred to a government elected by the people, for the people, under the leadership of our visionary John Dramani Mahama and Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. Ladies and gentlemen, the EC initiated this year's limited voter registration exercise on Tuesday, May 7, 2024, across all district offices and selected remote electoral areas. From the outset, the process has been marred by chaos, rampant lawlessness, delays, postponements, network failures, and power outages that have been the order of the day. Recall that just a day before the exercise commenced, on May 16, 2024, Mrs. Jean Mensah, chairperson of the EC, held a press conference where she made several alarming statements. These remarks concern the recruitment of returning officers, deputy returning officers, and registration supervisors, alongside assurances of the EC's preparedness for the registration exercise. However, as you have all witnessed, it has become clear that the Electoral Commission has not learned from past mistakes. The evidence shows a disturbing pattern of unpreparedness and a disregard for the necessary reforms to prevent these recurring issues. This lack of foresight and preparation undermines the trust and integrity required to conduct fair elections and puts the democratic future of our dear country at grave risk. Now on to our first issue, the recruitment of returning officers, deputy returning officers, and registration supervisors. Mrs. Jean Mensah announced in her press conference that the Commission has appointed returning officers and deputy returning officers for the 2024 general elections and will use them as registration and deputy registration supervisors for the limited voter registration exercise. We submit that the EC has acted unlawfully by violating Regulation 8(1) and 2 of CI 91, as amended by CI 126. And the law states as follows. 1, the Commission shall make available to the interested persons and parties at the district office the names and pictures of persons it proposes to appoint as registration supervisors, registration officers, registration assistants, and any other officials for the centers not later than 14 days before they are appointed. 2, a registered political party or an interested person may, in writing, object to any person proposed for appointment as a registration supervisor, a registration officer, a registration assistant, or any other officials within 7 days after the names of the proposed officers have been made available. Now, did the Electoral Commission comply with the mandated requirement for the transparent recruitment of returning officers, deputy returning officers, and registration supervisors before their disingenuous press conference? Clearly, the answer is an emphatic no. Why would the EC blatantly disregard crucial regulations outlined in CI 91, a document constitutionally mandated for registration exercise? The law explicitly says that proposed names for appointment should be made available to interested parties 14 days before registration begins, allowing for objections within 7 days. Yet, the EC ignored this critical stipulation. Is this omission not a deliberate attempt to obscure transparency in the recruitment process, potentially allowing politically tainted party activists to serve as registration officials? Such clandestine actions by the EC must be universally condemned by all who cherish our democracy. The EC has developed a troubling pattern of disregarding the very CI designed to regulate their activities. For example, they breached CI 127 in the year 2020 by issuing incorrect statement of polls for the general elections. And the Supreme Court's dismissal of these violations has only emboldened them to further infringe upon CI 91 with this opaque appointment that flout due process. Now, these acts not only breach trust, but also signal sinister intentions from an electoral body supposed to be impartial. Why does the EC continue to act with such impunity? In the year 2020, for the first time in our history, they deliberately disenfranchised the people of Central Kofi Akpafu, Likpe, and Lolobi Sao, traditional areas, and persistently misled the public about the reasons. Did they not realize that their draft constitutional instrument submitted to the Attorney General's Department on November 13, 2020, would not satisfy the 21 parliamentary days required for CIs to mature before the December 7, 2020 elections. The pattern of these actions reveals a disconcerting truth. The EC is emboldened because their past infractions went unaccounted for. Now, this continual disregard for the law must not be overlooked or tolerated as we approach another critical election on December 7th. Ladies and gentlemen, with this press conference, we are issuing a firm notice to the Jean Mensah-led Electoral Commission. The 2024 elections will not be business as usual. We are also here to declare unequivocally that any attempt by the EC to violate CI 127, which governs the conduct of the general elections, will be met with resolute resistance from us. We will not stand by idly while the EC undermines the time-tested electoral processes that are well recognized and respected by all stakeholders. Notice is served. Why should we, as a nation, accept anything less than adherence to the regulations that safeguard the integrity of our elections? We must all commit to upholding the various constitutional instruments that regulate our registration exercises and elections. This commitment is essential to ensuring peace, stability, and the conduct of free, fair, and transparent elections on December 7, 2024. Therefore, we call upon the National Peace Council, civil society organizations, religious bodies, and indeed all Ghanaians to take an active interest in the processes leading up to the 2024 elections. It is only through collective vigilance and active participation that we can safeguard our democratic processes. Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia have dwarfed the fortunes of our country, but we will not allow them to cause trouble come December 7. Jean Mensah, take note. We will not let this country go down on your accounts or on the account of your collaboration with Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia. That will not happen. Issue 2. Faulty machines and unavoidable network failures. We had hoped that the Electoral Commission had learned its lessons from the chaotic and disorganized 2023 limited voter registration exercise and district-level elections. Unfortunately, it appears they continue to demonstrate a profound level of incompetence across all areas of operation. One must ask, is the EC failing to assimilate critical lessons and make necessary improvements? Is this a matter of insufficient capacity or of resources? Or is it a deeper issue of neglect? The EC had ample time to prepare for this year's registration exercise following last year's district assembly elections, yet they failed. A fundamental aspect of their preparations should have involved a thorough assessment of the BVR kits to be used. If such an assessment had been done comprehensively and thoroughly, why are we now facing the deployment of faulty or non-functioning BVR kits? These malfunctioning BVRs have significantly delayed the registration process in many districts. Moreover, the exercise has been plagued by widespread network challenges, bringing registration to a complete standstill in numerous areas across the country. This dire situation forced the EC to direct their officials to switch to offline registration. The NDC unequivocally rejects the Electoral Commission's use of offline registrations, which could potentially cloak their inefficiencies under the guise of technical challenges. Such practices not only undermine the integrity of the electoral process, but are also ripe for exploitation, including data manipulation and the introduction of errors that could skew the process outcome. While recognizing that technical challenges are an unavoidable aspect of any large-scale logistical operation, we demand that the EC be proactive in implementing robust preventive measures rather than resorting to offline registration. This approach lacks real-time oversight, making it difficult to verify data promptly and transparently. thereby opening the door to potential prejudices and manipulations, particularly in targeted districts and regions to the disadvantage of the NDC. That meant these actions compromise transparency and trust. This NDC, therefore, insists on a registration process that maintains continuous and immediate data connectivity to safeguard the democratic rights of all Ghanaians and to ensure that our electoral outcomes reflect the true will of our people. Why then did the EC not preempt these predictable issues of malfunctioning equipment and put in place adequate contingency planning? Their failure to do so has not only stalled the registration process, but has compromised the integrity of the entire exercise. We demand that the EC rectify this systemic flaw to ensure that our electoral processes are not only efficient, but also trustworthy. Again, why has the Electoral Commission failed to establish network connectivity redundancy? Why were there no fallback plans involving other telecommunication companies? This oversight has inflicted severe hardships on registrants, many of whom are unemployed young people and students with no income. These individuals have traveled great distances to registration centers only to be met with disappointment and an inability to register. Ladies and gentlemen, consider the plight of these unemployed youth who expend their limited resources to get registered, only to get turned away due to the malfunctioning systems of the Electoral Commission. Does the EC not feel any obligation towards these young citizens? We NDC certainly do. Furthermore, how can the EC justify the misallocation of BVRs intended for the eastern region to Akotumbra in the western north region and the Utu Senya East in the central region? How can such fundamental errors be tolerated? Can we afford to let EC's work be riddled with such basic errors? Imagine the potential ramifications of similar mistakes on election day. These glaring failures have only reinforced our determination to demand a comprehensive audit of the Commission's equipment and ICT infrastructure before the polls on December 7, 2024. It has become clear that the EC cannot be trusted without stringent verification. This audit must encompass both hardware issues, such as outdated or incompatible equipment, and software vulnerabilities, including potential cyber threat to our electoral system. We are committed to ensuring the integrity of the biometric data previously captured and will leave no stone unturned in our pursuit of electoral transparency and accuracy. Issue 3, incorrect registration figures released by the Electoral Commission. Now, since the current EC commissioners led by Jean Mensah took over, the Electoral Commission has alarmingly perfected the malpractice of consistently churning out incorrect figures in critical electoral activities. We all vividly recall the debacle of the 2020 presidential election results, which were marred by multiple corrections of post-declaration. Multiple corrections post-declaration of results. One would expect that such glaring blunder would have served as a vital lesson, yet it appears the EC remains resistant to change. How can a once esteemed commission falter so badly under the watch of a commissioner who fails to understand basic arithmetic? This raises serious concerns about the EC's capability to conduct a credible election, and the NDC is profoundly disturbed. And we are urging the EC to rectify these issues if they are indeed not deliberate. For instance, the EC published the registration figures for days 1 to 4 of the limited registration exercise on their website and social media handle on May 11, 2024. Our National Directorate for Elections and IT, tasked with independently verifying these figures for the NDC, immediately identified significant discrepancies between our calculations and those of the Electoral Commission. Simple arithmetic, accurately summing the regional figures from the 16 regions, would have clearly demonstrated to the EC that their numbers were wrong. Such mistakes are utterly avoidable. Why must Ghana's Electoral Commission be reduced to an error commission? It is imperative that the EC approaches the handling of electoral figures with the utmost seriousness, as these numbers are fundamental to the integrity of the elections. No voter should be disenfranchised due to careless errors. The EC must distance itself from any intentions of rigging and be warned. Any attempt to undermine the electoral process will be rigorously challenged and exposed. On May 12, 2024, the Electoral Commission issued a press statement acknowledging erroneous figures previously released and attempted corrections. However, they claim the total number of registered voters over the 4 days remain unchanged. This situation exemplifies what we term transpositional rigging of elections, where figures are shuffled between categories without affecting the overall total. The assertion by the EC that these errors in regional figures did not impact the total count is patently misleading. Upon scrutinizing their so-called corrected figures, posted on May 12, 2024, another layer of startling errors was uncovered. Initially, we pointed out only a fraction of the errors for the EC to reassess their data. Intriguingly, they corrected only those specific discrepancies we highlighted, without conducting a thorough review of all other figures. It will astonish you, ladies and gentlemen, to learn that even their revised figures are still riddled with errors and need further corrections. For instance, in the OT region, the Day 2 figure of 578 was erroneously swapped with the 3's figure of 1,515. If these figures are realigned correctly, the two's national total should be 18,330 and not 19,267. The 3's total should be 49,553, not 48,616. Similarly, the 3 figure for Bono East, as stated in their corrected data, is 771. But this is totally wrong. Bono East recorded 2,252 per hour data. This figure will affect the total registered voters of 5,118 for Bono East for the 4 days as stated by the EC. Indeed, the total should rather be 6,599, thereby leading to a grand total of 144,495, and not the 143,014 as put out by Dr. Bosman Asari in his press conference on the 12th May 2024. Now, members of the press, if EC officers are comfortably seated, who are comfortably seated in air-conditioned offices in Accra can commit such elementary errors, what can we then expect at the polling stations on December 7th? Such dubious behavior from the EC could destabilize our democracy if left unchecked. Imagine the potential chaos on December 7, 2024, if the EC continues to release incorrect figures. What will be the security implications of their actions? If this is their dress rehearsal for the upcoming elections, then they must be told that they need to reconsider their approach, because this time around, it will not be business as usual. The EC might be testing the waters with their rigging strategy by deliberately misrepresenting and miscalculating registration figures. Our prompt detection and exposure of these egregious errors should serve as a clear warning to the EC about the vigilance of the NDC. We are fully prepared to safeguard the sanctity of the coming elections. We expect the EC to now firmly renounce any intention, if it exists, to collude with the failed NPP government to rig the elections. Any such attempt will be decisively thwarted. The EC must commit to conducting free, transparent, unbiased, and credible elections. Despite the Electoral Commission's apparent display of incompetence before the Ghanaian public, We have no doubt about their basic capability to perform arithmetic. However, the persistent occurrence of calculation errors suggests a pattern that cannot possibly be dismissed as mere oversight. Should it emerge that these miscalculations are indeed deliberate, let it be clearly understood. Any stratagem intended to manipulate electoral outcome through dubious recalibrations and misrepresentations will be destined to failure. Attempt to deceive or outmaneuver the NDC through such tactics will be met with uncompromising scrutiny and decisive exposure. Ultimately, these actions will only serve to unveil the deceit of those behind them to the entire world. To the people of Ghana, we want you to rest assured. The NDC remains vigilant and unyieldingly committed to safeguarding your votes. We pledge to ensure that every vote is cast, every vote is counted, and every vote is acknowledged in its rightful value. We urge the EC to promptly rectify the inaccuracies in the data release on May 12, 2024. We expect a thorough review and correction of all figures to forestall further errors, upholding the integrity of our electoral process. Issue 4, busing of minors to registration centers and the abuse of the Ghana card. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, we are compelled to address another grave concern: the flagrant abuse of the Ghana card. It has come to our attention that EC registration officials, in collusion with elements of the NPP, are misusing the Ghana card extensively. A particularly alarming instance was uncovered at the Pusiga Registration Center, where EC registration officer Muhazu Al-Hassan used a single Ghana card to register 20 different applicants. A single Ghana card to register 20 different applicants. Upon discovery, the police were promptly notified, leading to Muhazu Al-Hassan's arrests. Although he has since been granted bail pending further investigation, this incident raises significant concerns. The MPP's distribution of Ghana card to minors to facilitate their registration underscores a systemic manipulation of our electoral processes. The EC has lamented the registration of minors, yet conspicuously fails to challenge the National Identification Authority for issuing cards to these minors and misrepresenting their ages. Why is the EC's database not integrated with the NIA's to instantly verify the ages of new voters, especially when $54 million of taxpayer money was invested in 2020 to secure biometric registration capabilities? What purpose does the NIA serve as envisioned by President John Dramani Mahama if critical institutions like the EC cannot rely on it for essential verification and authentication during crucial national activities? The NDC is taking decisive action. We have directed our vigilant agents across the country to use the party's sophisticated age detection mechanism to identify and challenge any suspicious underage registrants. This proactive measure is crucial to preserving the integrity of our electoral system, ensuring that every vote cast is legitimate and reflective of the genuine will of the Ghanaian people. We remain committed to safeguarding our democracy against all forms of electoral malpractice. Ladies and gentlemen, the final issue we must urgently address today pertains to a disturbing series of security breaches that have compromised the integrity of this registration exercise. 1. In Brekum West, hoodlums deployed by the MP have terrorized registrants and NDC agents at the Benkasa Registration Center, physically assaulting everyone in the queue and specifically targeting our team with torture. 2. Similarly, in Nefutu, MPP thugs violently disrupted the registration exercise, attacking our registrants who were queued to register. Shockingly, Honorable Apenyo Makin threatened the regional police commander not to take any action over these incidents. In Asunafo South, notably in Kukwom, a group led by one individual known as Anointing have vandalized a registration center and assaulted both our party agents and the registration officials, all under the watchful eyes of security agents. Additionally, we have observed immigration officers and some overzealous police officers overstepping their roles by deciding who is eligible to register at various centers in the Volta, OT, Western North, Northern, Upper East, and Upper West regions, escalating tensions significantly. These officers must be reminded that their role is not to interpret the law, as the process for challenging potential registrants is explicitly outlined in Regulation 18.1 and 2 of CI 91. The directive to search vehicles moving to and from the Volta and OT regions has taken on a tone of selective intimidation, targeting citizens from these regions in a discriminatory manner. This intimidation must cease immediately. 6, we have also noted some security personnel at registration centers who are operating without displaying their name tags, effectively making themselves anonymous while on duty. We are issuing a stern warning to the EC and the heads of security agencies. Such individuals will be treated as impersonators and potential threats within these spaces. These incidents collectively paint a grim picture of the challenges faced during this registration exercise. They not only undermine the democratic process, but also threaten the safety and rights of every participant. Immediate action is necessary to restore faith in the system and ensure the security and integrity of our electoral processes. Finally, regarding the issue of obtaining the serial numbers of BVR kits, we affirm our commitment to transparency as articulated by our national chairman, Honorable Johnson Esiedun Kitia. We urge our registration agents to meticulously track and record the serial numbers of the BVRs used during the registration exercise. And we are proud to report that our agents have risen to this challenge, enabling us to accurately monitor the data generated by each BVR kit. We extend our deepest gratitude to our agents for their diligence and urge them to continue the vigilant oversight of the registration officials at all centers. Our insistence on documenting the serial numbers of the BVR kits is driven by commitment to accountability and transparency, not by any motive of malice. If the Electoral Commission truly upholds the principles of fairness and openness, it should have no reservations about allowing our agents to record these numbers. The ability to do so is crucial, particularly if there is nothing to conceal. This practice is essential not only for ensuring the integrity of the registration process, but also for reinforcing public confidence in the electoral system as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, esteemed citizens of Ghana, even as I conclude, it is with a sense of urgent responsibility that we address the myriad of issues undermining the integrity of our electoral process under the current administration. The Electoral Commission, which should function as an impartial arbiter, has exhibited a worrying trend of negligence and incompetence that must not go unchallenged, even as we approach the critical 2024 presidential and parliamentary elections. Despite the EC's mandate to conduct free and fair elections, we have witnessed a systematic erosion of trust through its actions. Actions that starkly reflect the corrupt and cronyistic tendencies of the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government. The MPP's veiled threats to retain power at all costs and the EC's complicity in these threats represent a direct assault on the democratic principles that Ghana has long been celebrated for. Today, we have laid bare the EC's continuous failings, from the questionable recruitment of electoral officers to the mishandling of registration processes and the flagrant security breaches orchestrated by those in power. These are not mere oversights, but appear to be part of a broader scheme to disenfranchise particularly the youth and suppress new voter registrations that are critical to shaping Ghana's future. Furthermore, we call upon civil society, the international community, and other political stakeholders to join us in closely monitoring the EC's activities. This broad-based vigilance is essential to ensure that the forthcoming elections truly reflect the will of the Ghanaian people. The NDC reiterates its unwavering commitment to defending the democratic rights of all Ghanaians. We will not stand idly by while the potential of a free and fair election is undermined. We will confront and contest any and all attempts to skew the electoral process. Our dedication to the democratic process remains resolute, and we are prepared to take all necessary actions to protect the integrity of the votes of the Ghanaian people. Let it be clear, the choice before the EC is straightforward. They can either conduct the duties they have been given with the integrity that the position demands and ensure a peaceful transition of power, or the EC will face the full strength of a united and determined opposition. The Electoral Commission must not merely sit up. It must rise to the occasion with urgency and transparency. The EC is compelled to address the 35 critical questions posed by the NDC regarding the theft of the biometric equipment. The gravity of these issues cannot be overstated, and we demand clear and prompt responses. Furthermore, we insist on the initiation of an independent, bipartisan parliamentary inquiry into the conduct of the Electoral Commission, particularly focusing on the stolen BVR kits, which were under CCTV surveillance at the Electoral Commission headquarters, and the mysterious disappearance of BVDs. Indeed, these EC actions in the coming days will signal its commitment, or lack thereof, to upholding the democratic process in Ghana. We would accept nothing less than full accountability and immediate remedial action to restore faith in our electoral process. Let me also use the opportunity to make this demand to the EC. On replacement of lost voter ID cards, starting from the 30th May 2024, the EC is expected to provide cards at no cost to the victims of the flood that happened along the Volta River and Lake. This is a demand. It's not a plea, it's a demand. In conclusion, we stand not just as a party seeking electoral victory, but as staunch advocates for democracy and the rule of law. The NDC is ready to lead, not only to correct the course of our nation, but to rebuild the broken trust between the people and the institutions designed to serve them. The path forward is one of restoration and renewal. And together with the vigilance and support of the Ghanaian people, we would ensure that the future of Ghana is secured in the hands of leaders who truly represent their interests and their aspirations. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. And together, let us safeguard the sanctity of our electoral process and ensure a vibrant democratic future for our country. Thank you very much.